We're on.
Wonderful.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to Pam and Kerry. I'm Roshka Hasseldine, founder director of Mother Daughter Coaching International, and today we're talking about what is mother daughter coaching, the mother daughter coaching model that I developed through my many years working with mothers and daughters. And probably many other things, because as I found with this Facebook Live, you start here and you meander to other topics, which is actually, I think, lovely. So, yes, I'm Roshka Hasseldine. I'm also the author of 2 books, Mother-Daughter Puzzle and The Silent Female Scream. And Kerry, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Kerry. I'm a certified life coach and certified mother-daughter coach. I'm from Lincoln, England, and I also work for Mother Daughter Coaching International as Director of Operations.
Brilliant.
Lovely. And I'm Pam Tronson. I am also a certified life coach and a certified mother-daughter coach. And I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. So we really are kind of all over the globe this morning, aren't we? Well, I say this morning, it's this morning for me, but
yes, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But that's the thing with Mother Daughter Coaching International. We come, and I think I just love that in the classes where all women mainly, because I haven't had any men yet, but women from all over the world in different countries, different cultures, all coming together to learn about the mother-daughter relationship and to learning about mother-daughter coaching. And to me, the richness of that, because you get to understand that key female relationship and within a different cultural context, and to see not only say the differences, but also the similarities. And that, in terms of, we talk a lot about emotional starvation and cultural female service, i.e. that women are expected to give, self, and neglect themselves, and how patriarchy affects women in the mother-daughter relationship. So you see this, both the themes that run through, regardless of where you are, what culture you come from, yet also the different cultural variations of that and nuances.
Well, absolutely. And I think that that's so important too, is because there's so many times there's something that someone will say that they'll bring up in a conversation. And I mean, we never stop learning. I mean, that's the thing as coaches, as women, as humans. I think once you stop learning, once you stop yearning for that new insight is when we get stuck. And it's so lovely with the international community, because people will bring things up that'll just stop you in your tracks and make you shift the way you see something, give you a completely new perspective that just, your jaw hits the table and you're like, whoa, and it just explodes your explodes your curiosity to a completely different avenue. It's terrific.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
And actually, I even have that too. Like I've been doing this for 30 years. And even at the last class, somebody said something and I thought, oh my gosh. Yeah. It just shifted it for me to a slightly, it was just from like a different lens.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I've got tingles down the back of my neck now. Usually when I have tingles down the back of my neck, I'm like onto something. And and I thought, wow, you're right. And if we stop learning, we're sort of like, we're stuck. You're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
it's the richness of all the different cultures and all the different experiences and all the different ways that we're brought up, all our different generational themes. It's everything. And when it comes together in the mother-daughter coaching environment, and we all start speaking and sharing our stories, it's incredibly powerful. It's just incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the thing too, is when we're reaching other women, to be able to find that little thing in the way they're seeing their own life, just a little wiggle room to find that moment where you can enter in, and as a coach, to be able to find a new way of saying something or a new way for people to look at things. And that's the thing that's so beautiful about the mother-daughter coaching model and this whole approach to it is so often we don't always see that's always one of my favorite expressions. You don't see fish don't see the water they're swimming in.
No.
And so often we have it. There's so many things we've accepted and we don't see it as a part of our learning journey. And then all of a sudden we get hit with a cold bucket of water in the face to go, oh my gosh, that wasn't something that I chose. That was just the way I was raised. And when we start saying things like, oh, well, that's the way I was raised, that's where this work, I just think is so powerful, because it allows us to go, well, wait a second, that is the way I was raised. And is that the way I want to keep thinking about this? Is there another aspect of this that I can bring into my, the way I'm viewing this, into my lens, another filter? How, what else could be going on here?
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely spot on, Pam. I think we just, as women, we just accept the way that our mothers raise us. To a degree, we may start to, I don't know, in our late teens, early 20s, start to go, hang on a minute, is that right? Or so-and-so's mother does it differently, or what's going on here? And then we have all these life changes, which we discuss in the mother-daughter coaching model. And we get married or we have children. I think it's especially when we have children, we kind of go, hang on, I don't want to do it like that. I want to do it like this. And then we start to ask why. A lot of us ask why. And this model shows us why. I spent years and years searching for the answer as to why things were happening in my family with my generation. And I couldn't find it anywhere. It was just nowhere to be found in any book I read, in any person I spoke to, even in therapy, that I thought, I've got to find an answer to this. And it was only through the mother-daughter coaching that the filter was kind of cleared for me. And I was able to go, oh my gosh, it was a huge aha moment. And it was, like you said earlier, Roshka, the tingles down the back of your spine. It's kind of, it just gets you and you just go, wow, that's why. And then it just carries on from there and there. And it doesn't stop. Like you say, Pam, the learning doesn't stop. It makes you thirsty for more and more and more, which is why it's so important.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And actually what you're saying here, I get emails from people who've read the mother-daughter puzzle, and they say the same thing, that they like, finally, it's like the shades have come away from the eyes and they see it, which actually makes all the hours of work, just that's worth it. That alone. But I'm as you're both talking, I'm sort of actually reminiscing over where it all started for me, and I think, the fish. If I was the fish, what was the water I was swimming in? And this martyrdom was a badge of honor in my family. My mother even put on my grandmother's tombstone, or Oma, as she's called. I come from Dutch family. How she lived for everyone else. Yeah. And so my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my mother, all of these women had no idea that women were entitled to a life of their own, an identity, agency of their own, that their life isn't there not just to serve others. And I remember do well at school, that was, told, that was, constantly told. And I thought, and then you get married and then you have children, and then, you're not supposed to work either, because my mother and my grandmother wasn't allowed to work. That was the law in those days in Holland when she got married. And my mother was, sort of came of age during this sort of post-war time, which was, very much, leave your jobs, ladies, because the men need the jobs. And she swallowed that whole. She didn't see any other reality outside of that, because how could she? Same as my grandma. So I had to go find a new reality.
Well, what's striking me so interesting when you tell that story is the fact that your mom believed that would be the highest honor that she could give to her mom, to rate that on her tomb. Here lies a woman who never thought of herself,
Yeah.
who never considered what her own needs were. Here lies the woman who
Yeah.
put her dreams on on the shelf and selflessly,
Yeah.
pursued only, her life only in terms of what it meant to the rest of her family. Like here, yeah, like I think about that, and it's like even just the fact that your mother would think that was the highest honor.
I think she genuinely, I think, did think that was the highest honor.
Yeah,
That's like shock. It makes me speechless, actually, in terms of how shocking that is. Yeah.
But I mean, that was the culture. I mean, that was the norm. I mean, that was the expectation. And I think that, back then it might have been like your grandmother may have, like, I always have this expression that I want them to, I lay, throw the dirt over me or whatever the process is when I died, knowing that I've just wrung every drop out of my life. I want it all. I want to be able to just, absorb everything that's offered to me. And I think back then, I mean, maybe your grandmother was laid in her grave going, nailed that. So good. Look at what I did. But as our culture has evolved and we are, we're standing on the shoulders and the work of so many women who have come before us to create a different opportunity. So we haven't had to just go along with the cultural norms, which is what we're talking about here. We owe it to our foremothers to be able to carry on with their work. And this is just such a wonderful way not to look back on our families historically with blame or shame or anything like that, but just an acknowledgement.
Yes.
And to be able to go, gosh, like, thanks, Mom. And here's, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it. I just, just that acknowledgement of what went on.
Yeah.
And it's it's like they took one for the team. That was what was expected.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did. They did the best they could. It was, it was everything that they were being fed, and they took it and did the best they could with it. But I know my kids are in a totally different mindset.
Yeah.
As far as, they, and I think that's because I work, exclusively with the mother-daughter relationship. And I think so many of the kids now, daughters now, especially, they sense the discord. They sense that something's off.
That's true.
And they're not able to put a finger on it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the discord between mothers and daughters right now, I think it's because of that.
I agree.
And for them to have a vehicle to be able to understand how that energy has flowed through the generations, and for them to understand that we're not like my work, I think, is to help moms become more evolved in their way of thinking. If they can look back and see, and then and I can help them to find the curiosity they need to create a different stance for them, that opens up the communication between them and their daughters.
I agree. I think what you're saying is very important, Pam, because creating like mother-daughter, well, it's actually called the mother-daughter attachment model, but this is mother-daughter coaching, provides that framework through the mother-daughter history mapping. But where you're also talking about soft eyes. So if I look back with soft eyes, which is actually empathy, and actually see, again, my mother and my grandmother, they did not know another reality. It's like speaking a completely foreign language to them, that they have no idea what you're talking in terms of, agency and, taking care of your needs. What is that? I mean, I could have been speaking Japanese, they would have understood. Yes. So there is all of that, but also looking back and seeing the phenomenal strength and resilience that they've had, that they've got. I say Japanese, both of them were in a Japanese concentration camp. How they got through, how my grandmother got her kids through that, I will never know. And how she made choices within the constraints she had.
Yes.
And women are phenomenal at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're also right that today young women in their 20s and 30s are waking up and saying, actually, I want something different. But the trouble is, there is a ton of mother blaming out there in the social media, and I'm afraid in the therapy world. And that's where we're different.
Oh, absolutely. And for us to be able to see what's going on and to be able to kind of, we have to, like the mother-daughter model work, all of this work really that you do, Rashki, it creates grace.
That's a good word.
Yeah, and I don't think that as moms, like if we're in a broken, disjointed relationship, if that bond has been tested with our daughters, if we are blaming and shaming ourselves, we're not in a position of strength to be able to show up in a way where we can actually create the connection and the love we need to be able to move forward. And all this work you're doing allows the mom to consider that there is a historical aspect to how they're feeling.
Exactly. And historical and a patriarchal aspect.
Yes.
A patriarchal aspect, and also because actually, and in fact, that in a sense defines the mother-daughter relationship, but also, and to grieve.
Yes.
We talk a lot about sort of jealousy, which is really grief what she never got to have, never got to be. And now that the daughter is able to, because of the generational change. Yeah. Kerry, I can see your mind is going 10 to a dozen.
How did you know? I'm itching here. I'm itching to say something.
Say something. Yeah. Say what's going on.
It's what really got me was we when you mentioned the mother wound or the mother blaming, it's very much like it's the patriarchy wound. It's not the mother wound or the mother blaming. Yes. And I think having daughters 17, 18, it's infiltrating them even younger now than the early 20s. It's quite apparent. But you're right, they're going into this social media environment where it's all about the mother wound or, all of this. But at the same time, they're also talking a lot about the patriarchy and about the things that are going on, because we've had the Me Too movements and all of that, but they need to connect those two together. They need to connect the patriarchy with the wounding and not the mother wounding. And I think that's vital in this work. I think that's really important.
Exactly. I've just been on holiday, and holidays are wonderful times to just sort of use and to have perspective. And the word actually what came to my mind, and I need to write more about this, and it's not that I haven't written about it, but I got some clarity that actually the role of motherhood within our society is a patriarchal invention. It's defined by patriarchal gender role expectations and I think attachment theory, Bowlby's and Ainsworth's attachment theory, that is sort of, the sort of gold standard within therapy world, doesn't quite recognize enough that the patriarchal defining of motherhood as the selfless carer, all available. She is the primary caregiver, as of, like the father is secondary. Come on, So I really think that conversation, that's what dawned on me the last couple of weeks, when that conversation needs to be really beefed up, because again, the fish doesn't know the water it's swimming in. Yep. We don't know. This water that motherhood is swimming in is defined by patriarchy.
Yes,
carry on.
No, I saw something today where somebody had written on social media, and they put I'm a working mum, but why do you never hear a working dad?
Yes, exactly.
No.
And actually, it made complete sense. I'm like, I've never heard somebody say a working dad.
For her.
But you hear it all the time, don't you? Oh, I'm a working mum, or she's a working mum.
Yeah.
What? Why? Why are we doing that? Well, you know, where's that come from?
That's the water we're swimming in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That we're mothering in. Yeah.
No, and we've created a way of talking about it, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because I'm gonna like I sometimes like the whole word blame to me is blame exists in the absence of the ability to take responsibility. Like it exists when like when we're lacking the awareness to be able to do this. And it's I think like I think we're not, you know, like I think it's important that we're not looking back. Like I have this fantasy that there was a time that happened, you know, thousands of years ago where man and woman sat down and the man said, you know what, you have this magical power where you can make babies. I don't know, I'll keep you fed, I'll keep you protected, I'll do all these things, and you just like you keep doing what you're doing because we need you in order to grow our tribe. And I think there was a time when the women's status was revered. I think there was a time where I think we did have an equal kind of a responsibility, and over the years,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's just gotten dissed. It's gotten it's shifted, and that position of equality has just shifted so that it became, oh, you know, what I need to do is so important. I just need you to take care of everything else. How about that?
Yes.
And it's that slow, maybe it wasn't slow shifting. Maybe it was only a generation or two. I don't know. But we have allowed ourselves into that space, and you can completely understand why. We needed the protection. We needed the, you know, like you know, being able to carry a baby and forage for food. I don't know. I didn't live back then, but I think what we're seeing now is women going, whoa, hang on. We've been drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time. We understand how that happened, you know, like with all these different things that were happening in our society. We've been going along with this whole thing for a while, but we're ready to make a change. We're making a change. We're time, like y'all have had, you know, your turn in the pool.
Yeah, you've had a good run at it.
Yeah. Enjoyed it.
Yep. And we're in a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So it's time that you're right, actually, and maybe that's what helped my thinking. Because during the holiday, the BBC, they had an article. It was actually my partner that forwarded it to me about the start of what was surmising the start of patriarchy, and that. So many years ago, it was actually they think it was land ownership. So when yeah, am I right? Yeah,
I read that. Colonization and movement and land ownership. Yeah.
So then men need, like, who's going to inherit my land? So I don't know who decided that the land belonged to them, to men. Somewhere along that happened, but who gets my land? It must be my offspring. So therefore, I've got to own the woman.
There you go.
Yep. And there we go. And then
I need breeding stock.
Yes, an inheritance. So, but you're right. Today, it's like time's up.
Well, and we've seen all this, you know, this shifting of attitudes in the last, you know, 10 years, like you were saying, Carrie.
Yeah.
With the Me Too movement and you know, an uprising. I don't know if that's the right word, but a deeper awareness that's coming from the women in our culture, and it's from our daughters' generation. Yeah. They're the ones that are standing up and saying, no. Like,
Yeah.
I learned so much from my daughters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, me too.
I mean, they are such brilliant teachers, but I have to tell you, I have to, the version of me, I don't know, 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have had the ability to have learned from my daughters, because I would have been in the role of motherhood and I would have been doing all the things I knew how to, like, it was a different mindset. And being able to see the next generation as teachers, I think, is incredibly valuable.
Mm.
And I want to add, my son too has taught me a ton, because he's the new generation of men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, yeah, and he too, both of them. But I think, so sort of looking at the feminist movement, which clearly passed my mother by entirely in New Zealand in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I remember it was only in the, late 70s that women started to have part-time jobs. And even, I had my kids in the 80s and sitting in mothers groups, and the criticism that was, did you know that she's gone back to work? Oh my gosh, how terrible, poor child, poor family. That sort of very sexist language was just the norm.
Mm.
So that's maybe slightly behind some other countries, but still, if you look at the shift today, it's completely different. And I think what we're about is connecting, like Kerry, you said it, connecting the dots between what has been going on generationally and going on today, and the emotional impact on women, or the emotional harm on women, i.e. the silencing, the neglect, the emotional hunger, the grief, the jealousy, which is grief, and the relationship impact, how it impacts mothers and daughters.
Yeah.
And how it impacts how we behave in all our relationships, actually. And I think, so to sort of separate that out, I think, in a sense, historically, feminism has been looking at, sort of individual empowerment, but there's also what's the repercussions for us in terms of how we relate to each other, particularly as mother and daughter, which is what we're about.
But like you said, it filters out into all relationships, doesn't it? And I think some people, when we talk about feminisms, it's about a dislike of males. It's really not.
Oh.
It's so not. And I think that's such a strong word that people don't really understand the connotations behind it. And that's where we get into difficulty as well, because we're looked upon as doing something that's not quite good or not quite right.
Or anti-male.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a patriarchal conversation in itself, that anything that questions their authority or questions their right to control or questions any of their behaviors or the internalized sexism that they carry around, that we all carry around,
Exactly.
Is somehow a threat to their authority or their position of power, when in fact, actually, their position of power is a patriarchal construct in itself.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, and I have to say, like, for a lot of the men in our society, again, like, I don't think they do see the water that they're swimming in either.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think there is, but the idea that they're like just kind of continuing on, they're in some ways kind of doing a lot of the same things on a certain level that we are, as far as the mental mindset of just, well, that's how it's always been. That's what my father did. It's what and I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a guy, at least not in this lifetime. So it's, I don't know that I can necessarily relate, but I also see the pressures. I think it's a shift in society that they're not going to do, because they're at the top of this pyramid.
Yeah, it works they think it works for them.
Yes.
Some think it works for them. I do think there is a shift in the younger men. I
agree.
There is an absolute shift. And there is a perception that it's, why should I change if it works for me? But it doesn't work for you at the end, because patriarchy, toxic, well, they call it toxic masculinity, which I have a problem with. It's just like mother wound. It's like, it's not masculinity that's toxic. It's the patriarchal concept of masculinity that is toxic and really does men a disservice.
Yeah.
So it's the same as with women, and which is what the mother-daughter attachment model is about, is that, highlighting the emotional silencing and the neglect and we call maladaptive attachment behaviors, how women are then drawn to being controlling or completely silent or manipulative, or, and that's where often they're blamed for that, when in fact, actually, that is an adaptation to try and get your needs met. Men have exactly the same thing. Terry Reel's the best author to go. And actually Bell Hooks, The Will to Change, that's the book. Yeah. They talk a lot about that. And I think, that to sort of unpack that.
Absolutely. And, going back to one of the other things you said too, is that it's like we have a tendency to also, our criticism sometimes goes against you were saying, we would sit in those groups and we would look at women who had gone back to work and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's doing that. But we have, as women, I mean, I'm very aware, and I think it's good to have an awareness of our need to criticize other women across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And for so long, I think the patriarchy has created women as the the object of, we see ourselves as the object of love, and that our worth is somehow created by whether or not we are wanted or desired or whatever that is. We over the years have developed such a poor sense of self, or a diminished sense of self. And again, that's a very patriarchal thing. And it's that diminished sense of self that I think, like you're talking about, control, manipulative behavior. It's like we don't feel comfortable standing in our truth. So we've got to do these other things to try to make it all work for us.
What do you think, Kerry? I'm
just thinking, if you do start to speak about what you want or what you need, then you're deemed demanding or critical. And then if you don't speak what you need, then you obviously are suffering in another way. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, really, in this patriarchal society. But we need to learn to advocate for ourselves. We've got to stand up for ourselves. And this is the beauty of the coaching model. It's so, when you start the mapping process and you start to see the themes that are highlighted, it's just incredible. It's just every single time it's there. And you can almost see the recognition in the client's eyes, where they just kind of go, wow, that's wow. And it's spine tingling. There's so much room for change and connection and everything, really.
Exactly.
This is how it's been. I accept that. I see that. I have all of these aha moments. I see how it's played out in me. I'm going to take that all in, and I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to make conscious decisions as to who I want to be now. Knowing that I've got, the record still playing in my head. We don't always get to change at the drop of a hat. Sometimes change happens overnight. Sometimes it takes practice, but it's the awareness.
And the fact that you're facilitating generational change. I mean, how incredible is that for your children's children?
Yes.
I mean, everyone has a relationship with their mother, but to have a relationship with your own child based on this ability to change how you think and feel, and to be heard and seen, again, it filtrates into all of your relationships. Because if you can do that with your daughter, you can do that with your husband or your son or your brother or anything. But it's like you said, Pam, it's the awareness of it. And this is what the beauty of the coaching is. It's bringing awareness to the whole situation.
And I want to add one thing that you said, Kerry, right at the start too, that why mother-daughter coaching is so vital a resource actually is because of the fact you're damned if you don't. So when, yes, I understand myself, I see where I've come from, I see the generational patterns, I see how I've learned to silence myself, all that. And this is where I'm going. And then even though there is not just your own internalized silencing and that you've got to sort of you've got working against you or you've got to work with, but you've got everybody else around you who is invested in you being that person that you were a while ago.
Yes.
And it's like, I describe it as a mobile. Families are like a mobile, and they're imbalanced because, they're imbalanced because you stay, especially the mother, and here's the patriarchal motherhood, stays in the role that she's expected to be in. She changes it. Mobile's out of balance. Everybody's upset. So that's where mother-daughter coaching is vital, because you need a place and support to then deal with the criticisms out there.
Oh, yeah.
Try and push you back in the role that you've come from, that everybody needs you to be in. The good news is eventually all mobiles create a new order. All families create a new order. But you do need that support, the wisdom, the input to help steer the course. Yeah, and the knowledge. That's a good word. Yeah.
Well, and I think it comes from, I think currency in our world is our ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you're going to rock the ship.
Yeah.
You're gonna the mobile is gonna be tilted on one side for a while, and that's okay. And we want so desperately for, as our kids, as our daughters especially get older, we have this relationship that's rooted in the mother, like who we are as the mother to a young growing child. They're under our roof, and then all of a sudden they're not under our roof. And you're like, oh my gosh, what if they don't like me anymore? How do I make sure that they still like me? How do I maintain this connection?
Yeah.
And we, the thing that I certainly see in my coaching is when you're coming from where your best options are to try to control them, to try to manipulate them, to try to guilt them, to try to do all those things. It doesn't work. And so it's for us to take that moment to go, wait a second, I don't actually want to keep using those tools. I want to have something else.
Yeah.
And learning how to stand in our truth and be more authentic is so much more attractive to the people around us
and healthy.
Than trying to be someone that you think they might like.
When it's not you. And
when it's not,
Yeah, and research shows that daughters actually want to know the authentic mother. They don't really want to know, who are you really, Mum?
Yeah.
They want to be known by their mum, who they really are. Actually, and I just want to say, I had a little aha moment, because when you were talking about, it's okay if the mobile's lopsided, I just, in my mind, flash, you could create a nice little, a meme or video over this.
Right.
Because who created the mobile in the first place?
Yes.
It's not us.
Yeah.
It's patriarchy. So you're stepping out of your role. Everybody's upset. You're blamed. Well, who created the role in the first place? Not you. So that, in a sense, reduces the feeling of blame. You'll still be blamed, but for you to take that on, it's not you.
It's a heavy burden to carry from a mother. It's extraordinarily heavy.
Yeah.
And to think that your daughter will take that same burden on, and unless you address these issues, I wouldn't want to pass that mantle on to my daughters. I want a different life for them. I wanted a different freedom, the ability to be themselves, truly be themselves without fear of, rejection or blame or hurt. I mean, what an incredible gift to give to your children.
Yeah. And if they are blamed or criticized, to not actually see that as not owning that. Like, this is not that, the criticism's not about me. It's not a mirror I recognize myself in.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the idea of being able to take the criticism, and it's, I've talked so many times about the idea that, when our kids are little, we're always taught criticize their behavior, not the human. You're not bad. Your behavior is not appropriate. And for us to then be able to reflect that on ourselves and go, whew, I did these things. I don't like these things. These are, you're criticizing me for these things. And you're right, that probably wasn't my best work. But me as a human, who I am as a person, my own humanity is still intact.
Still, yes, you're still you're still lovable. You're still worthy. You're still
all those things. And we attach so much of our children's behavior and will they like us and all that kind of stuff to who we are as a human, because we've been told that our worth is dependent on all the things, all the performative things that we can do for everybody else. It's like, this is, be a good mom, put yourself last. I can see the billboard, or the advertisement. It's like everything for everybody all the time. Do that. Like, stand on, and Rushka, I think you were one of the people that made me really, really think about it, because I, like so many other moms, I just wanted to be the best mom ever. Like, I was motivated by that.
Yes.
That's how we all, I think so many of us, most of us are going to go, well, yeah, and then the recognition that we have this one mountain with an altar on it that we can stand on as the perfect mom, but you're either a really good mom or you're not.
Yeah, it's black or white. That is the concept of patriarchal motherhood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and even one of the theorists, and I do want to know, most of these theorists are white men and dead.
The other thing I learned from you, the other aha awakening I had through this work that we did together in the program. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But
sorry. That the white men, you mean, and dead. Yes. Yeah. Like, so we're taught to see ourselves, and therapists are taught to see women through these men's eyes, without really understanding that, well, Bowlby, 1940s, 50s, very upper class English,
Yes.
They see women through their patriarchal eyes.
Yes.
Without patriarchy ever being anywhere near anything. So
yeah, they're trying to theorize as to what's going on in the relationship that we have with our children. They haven't a freaking clue. They're not even home half the time. They're not even around. Who are they to come in and tell? Like, I mean, they meaning these, these white male theorists calling themselves the,
exactly,
the fathers of psychology. How are they're going to come in and tell me what's going on in my life? I'm sorry, you're not even home, honey. It's like, really?
This is exactly how many diapers have they changed?
Yeah.
How many hours have they looked up?
Even Freud did this, didn't he? Even Freud is guilty of. Yeah.
He's a man of his age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and all of our founding fathers of psychology are fathers.
Yes.
They're fathers. Let's look back into that from a historical context and understand that as brilliant as they may have been, they don't have a clue what's actually going on in the home. Like they weren't
there.
Part of it.
And they don't, and they come from an age, and that's what we're trying to change here.
Yes.
From an age where they didn't bother to ask what's actually going on behind women's eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
What is going on really for women? So We have talked for nearly 45 minutes, and it's gone like that.
Wow.
Because and especially what we just said, I think that I mean, we led to this moment. So I want to thank you both for you spending some time here on Facebook Live with me. Yeah, let's just finish with each. This is what I always do in class. It's a little go around. Like, as something that struck you today in our conversation. And for me, it's, I think voicing and having more of a conversation about patriarchal definition of motherhood. And what we actually just said at the end here, in terms of, it's fathers, and they're white often, and the perception that they know what it means to be female is actually a bit flawed.
Yeah.
Kerry, what jumped out at you out of today's conversation?
Again, I mean, it's jumped out. I've felt this before a lot, but what jumps out for me again today is how much this relationship and connection affects and infiltrates all of our relationships and connections. And I think we can underestimate how, it is, mother-daughter is unique. It is a mother and a daughter, but it's not in a vacuum. It's tendrils are there everywhere in all the relationships, in your marriage, in your other partner, in your other children. It's just there. And I think if you can figure this out, it's just going to have such a healthier impact on all other areas of your life.
Yeah.
I agree. Totally. Pam.
And I don't know where this honestly just settled into my brain, but the idea that when we are gifted with the opportunity to have a daughter, I know many people who only have sons, and I start conversations and they kind of look at me like I've got two heads when I get talking about different things, because of course, I think raising sons, and Rushka, you would know this, and Kerry, I don't know, I have two daughters, so I have no concept. Yeah, I have no concept what.
No, me neither.
Yeah, what raising a son, we don't do penises at my house, but that was always the joke when the kids were growing up. But to understand that there's wired into that mother-daughter relationship is the beauty of being able to see ourselves reflected back.
Yes.
And it's a magical opportunity when we see it for what it is, to facilitate growth and knowledge and learning. And I think that Rushka, your work has just been so impactful, and the attachment model and all the tools that you give us as practitioners to be able to continue to, work with clients and be able to help them to see their own wisdom, their own beauty, and to just get that deeper understanding. It's profound. It's changed my life.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
It's absolutely changed mine. I totally agree, Pam. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a different person because of it.
Well, thank you. Again, that makes all the hard work really worth it. I'm actually standing. So, Kerry, do you think you could post a comment, put the type in, because, as I'm finishing, anybody listening to either this live or the recording of it, and would like, if you're a therapist or coach, and you'd like to look at the training, go to motherdaughtercoach.com. Can you see are you able to do that?
I don't think I am, actually.
So I've got it, guys, turned up because I'm standing. Let me put it in then.
So just while Rushka's popping that in, if people are interested, they can go to Mother Daughter Coaching International. Everything is listed there. There are the course details. There are the Find a Coach page. There's everything to do with Rushka's history and her books and all of that. So it's gone on. So all of that can be found there.
The training, there's small courses, short courses for mothers and daughters. There's resources, free resources, ton of those.
Videos and podcasts.
Find the coach page where all the graduates are listed by country. But don't forget, we're now online. We're through Zoom, Skype, whatever you use.
Yep.
So don't just look for someone in your own country. You can, my therapist, I'm in America, my therapist in England, my supervisor in England. So you can find somebody that fits right with you, regardless of where they are.
Yep. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dear friends, it is an absolute honor.
No,
Thank you.
It goes both ways.
no, I so enjoy any time I get to spend with you. So much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Likewise, right back at you. Thank you so much. Let's click on end the broadcast.
Thank you.
Take care.